So here we go. So welcome to Champion Ways. I am honored and excited to have my friend, Dr. Joseph Parent of Zen Golf and best-selling author. And I'm really excited to have this talk. And, I've gotten to know you a little bit over the years. And, you're a top mental game expert from Golf Digest, PGA Tour and LPGA Tour coach. I know you've been on tour a lot, and, we'll get into that a little bit. And, overall, you're obviously one of the foremost experts out there. And, you bring a really cool approach to this from your background, which I'd love to hear a little bit about. But just real quick on how I got to meet you. I know I started the app years ago, and you were kind enough to offer the mental game side of that. And, I've just learned so much from you and just that nugget of us getting to know each other. So I'm really excited to have you on, and I appreciate you taking the time. And, if there's anything else you want to add on there before we get rocking.
No, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I love to teach and be able to share what I've learned from my teachers and my experience. And, a teacher really learns from their students, and everything that I put into Zen Golf, and I have 3 other golf books, Zen Putting and The Art of the Mental Game. And my last golf book was a putting book, How to Make Every Putt. And we can talk about that a little bit.
Yes.
And then I wrote Zen Tennis, and this one, which is called The Best Diet Book Ever. And because I'd gained some weight, and I decided to use the principles in Zen Golf to work on my discipline for weight loss. And it's a positive choice model, so that instead of feeling like you're deprived and you can't have something, you realize that if what you want to do is feel better and feel more fit, then you don't need some of the things that you thought you had attachment to before. And then, of course, we're going to get back into, this is my baby, the latest one. It's a Winnie the Pooh book. And it's a way for adults and children to learn mindfulness together by reading Winnie the Pooh stories and practicing mindfulness practice. And that's really the core of everything that I teach, is mindfulness practice. When you get a raffle ticket, those little raffle tickets, if you turn it over, on the back it says, "You must be present to win." And that's one of my favorite slogans, because if you want to do well in golf or anything in life, you must be present to win. If you're caught full of regret about the past, and that's all you're thinking about, or worry about the future, then you're not really going to be able to perform to your potential in the here and now, in the present moment. And that's why you must be present to win.
Well, just jumping into that, I got a list of topics I want to talk to you about, but, that just sparked a question. We're in this age of just pure information and just go, go, go. We have everything at their fingertips, and I know we have close to 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day. So like staying in the present is not easy unless you know what you're doing, correct?
Well, yes and no. Okay. That the usual thought is that my default mode is distraction, and I have to figure out how to stay in the present. But in fact, as far as your body is concerned, unless you have a time machine, you don't have a time machine, do you?
No.
Oh, okay. So
wish I did.
If you don't have a time, yes, we do, don't we? If only I could do that over, but that's living in the past.
Yeah.
If you don't have a time machine, that means the only location your body can be is here, and the only location in space that your body can be is here, and the only location in time that your body can be is now, here and now. So as long as you stay connected with what you're experiencing in your body, you're always in the here and now. You're always present. It's when your thoughts hook you and take you away into the past and the future, or something else, or thinking about the present, that you're not really fully there. So it's not something that's hard to find or that you can't do. It's kind of the way I teach about the zone in golf. You're always there. It's that you take yourself out of it through all these kinds of interference. So, I'll give you an example. You're about to drive home, and you're going to stop at the store, and just before you leave, you get into an argument with somebody, and you get in the car, and you're kind of steamed, and you start thinking, you know what I should have said? I should have said this, and then they would have said that, and then I could have said this, and then they would have said that, and then I'd get my point across.
Yeah.
So next time I see them, I'm going to say this, they'll say that, I'm going to say this, they'll say that, and then I'll get my point across. And you pull in your driveway, you miss the store, you don't know what route you took home, you just missed 20 minutes of your life. Your body was on automatic driving the car, on automatic pilot, but your brain was, your mind was someplace else. And it was replaying the past and pre-playing the future. And we spend like 99% of our time doing that, but we don't have to. Between every replay and pre-play, there's a gap in which we are present. And that's what we want to tune into and lengthen. We want to lengthen the amount of time that we stay in the present and tuned into our experience without leaving. And the good thing about golf is, from the pre-shot routine to the execution of the shot is only a few seconds. So if we can just stay with what we're experiencing for those few seconds, we'll play better golf.
Yeah. So that's got to lead us into mindfulness, which I think you're probably the best at coaching that, especially in the golf world. I mean, because you have a pretty unique background.
Yes, that's
if you'd like to share about that. But I mean, mindfulness is something that, especially, I read Zen Golf, and I think that's probably the first book I read that just, there were so many principles in there that just made so much sense. And I think the one for me the most was the teacup.
Yes, how you learn, how students come and whether they're open to learning or not. And it's a traditional metaphor for students in the Buddhist tradition. And you talked about my background. I've been studying and practicing Buddhism since I was 19. So we're talking about over 40 years. And it's not practicing it as a religion, but as a practical way of working with the mind, which really is what it is. If you translated the word Buddhism into English, it would translate as awakeism. So through the day, am I asleep in my daydreams, or am I awake to my experience? That's really all it is. And it's being more fully awake to your experience, and then how you respond to what you encounter and to others out of that sense of authentic presence. You become a much more authentic human being. So the metaphor is, if you're going to receive instruction, some students show up like a teacup that's turned upside down. And the instruction gets poured and nothing goes in. And that's usually somebody who has so many opinions of their own. I've done lessons like that, and I've said, well, what if you look at it this way? And they say, and then they give they name drop some other instructor. Well, so-and-so told me to do it this way. Mm-hmm. And then so-and-so told me to do that way. And this other guy told me to do that way. And I said, well, why aren't you there with them? What are you doing here with me? You're not open to hearing any of that. Now, some students are more like a teacup that's upright, but has a hole in the bottom. And that means it's in one ear and out the other. You hear it, but you don't retain it. And then others still, it's an upright teacup with no hole, but it's still got leftover of what was in it from before. And then that kind of pollutes whatever you're pouring in. And that's somebody who takes it, but mixes it with other stuff and isn't really fully hearing what you have to say. And of course, if you get a student, and I love it when the student says, you know what, I've heard a lot of different things, but I'm going to put them all on hold and see what you have to say. Now that matches up with the way that I teach, because I don't teach a factory or recipe or cookie cutter kind of approach where the student has to fit into my program. When I first started working with Vijay Singh, we walked about 9 holes, and he liked what I was saying, and he said, okay, what's your program? And I said, you're my program. I want to offer you all of the knowledge and techniques and things that I have. You pick and take what works for you, and that's going to be the recipe. Because I'm not going to fit you into a program. I'm going to find what works for you. And I don't have any attachment to using my stuff if it doesn't work for you. So in that way, I'm offering something. And if I have a student who's saying, well, you know what? I'm willing to listen and try it. And I say, look, I want you to try it out. Don't take my word for it. Try it out. And if it works for you, then it works.
Yeah. So Doc, with mindfulness, and I think meditation is probably the worst. I think people take that the worst way, but mindfulness is a little softer way of taking it. But, truthfully, I mean, it is a big practice. It's becoming more renowned. I mean, even Navy SEALs talk about practicing that to an extent. Those are probably the top performers in the world, right?
Yeah, it's much more, it's front page news. Time Magazine did a cover called The Mindful Revolution. And I think that what it's actually come out of the overload that we have. Originally, we thought that all of these machines and phones and computers were going to be labor-saving devices. We were going to have much more leisure time and be able to relax. Actually, it turned out to be the other way around, that now we have to pay attention to our Twitter feed and our Facebook page and our this and our that and our Instagram, and all these different things. And so we're actually busier than we've ever been. And because of that, we feel it's much more evident that we spend most of the day chasing our own tail, running around in circles. And it's exhausting. And we say, I got to get off the merry-go-round. There was a play a long time ago, Stop the World, I Got to Get Off. That's really what we feel like.
Right.
And the way we stop the world is stepping out of it and finding a quiet place to sit and just calm down and work with our breathing, our body, which is breathing and body, they're always in the present moment. And letting our thoughts come and go and noticing them more as an observer than as a participant. And that's the technique that is presented in pretty much every one of my books. I always include some instruction in mindfulness practice that you get yourself grounded. And I want golfers to do that before they step into a shot. I want them to take a breath and breathe out and feel themselves sink into the ground, because the ground is, that's the point where our energy comes from. Pushing off the ground is where our power comes from. And being down to earth means grounded rather than spinning around and flying around all over the place. So mindfulness has become very popular, and people discovered that, when I slow down, I actually get more done. And I enjoy life much more. I have a poem in the Winnie the Pooh book, and he's talking to Rabbit, who's very busy and always multitasking. So I wrote a poem that says, Rabbit gets in quite a stew, always has too much to do. If he did things one by one, he would have a lot more fun. And then in parentheses, and maybe even get more done. So that's really, isn't that fun?
That's awesome.
So that's the kind of poems that I have in the new book. Now, the reason, and so mindfulness has become much more accepted because it doesn't have religious trappings. It's simply sitting, and meditation, people think saying Om and closing your eyes and drifting off into astral planes or something. And in fact, the mindfulness I teach you do with your eyes open, because you want to be mindful 24, throughout your daily life. You want to be mindful playing golf. And to do that, well, you can't walk around with your eyes closed or you bump into things. So let me clarify. So I don't even use the word meditation.
Right.
I use mindfulness. And mindfulness is two things. It's the state of being present to your experience moment after moment. Okay? So that's being mindful. Mindfulness practice is noticing when you are in a daydream or when you're doing a replay or a pre-play of the past or the future, and catching it and bringing yourself back to what you were paying attention to in the present moment. Now, the word for mindfulness is originally it's an old ancient Indian term, 2,500 years ago. And if you were to accurately translate it, it would translate as remembering what you were doing. It's that simple.
Wow.
So the practice of mindfulness is when you recognize that you're distracted, well, kind of when you recognize you're distracted, you're already back. You don't it's like you don't know you're dreaming until you wake up, and then you don't say, "Oh, I better wake up." You're already awake. That's how you know you were dreaming. Well, when you recognize and know that you're distracted, you're already back. The practice is, now what was I paying attention to before? And going back to it. So if you're over a golf shot and you're standing over there and you start thinking about, well, now don't hit it in the lake. And you go, hey, I don't want to be thinking about that. Mm-hmm. You need to remember what you were paying attention to and saying, oh, that's right. Playing my draw to the right third of the fairway. Whole different thing. Mm-hmm. And that's how you use mindfulness in golf. You start to recognize that feeling of not being there and saying, I don't want to play a shot from that state of mind. And you might have to back off and take a breath and refocus. But then you go back in and hold your mind on your target and on your swing keys and nothing else. And you'll hit your best shots.
So like the conscious, subconscious side of that, is mindfulness helping you be in the subconscious? And is that a big part of your practice, saying like we want to be, is that kind of what the zone is? Like, I just want to really clarify this for people listening.
Well, let's start by taking away the fancy psychological talk and talk about thinking mind and instinctive mind.
Okay.
If you're any kind of sports, you know that instinctive mind is what runs your body. If you had to think about how if you're throwing a baseball to somebody, if you had to think about how you cock your arm and when you bend your elbow and when you bend your wrist and where the weight is in your fingers and how you move every muscle in your body, you would turn into a pretzel. There's an old story that the snail challenged a centipede to a race. And they were on the starting line, and the snail said, what order do you move your legs in? And by the time the centipede figured that out, the snail had won the race. So if we start trying to think about all those things, we can't do it. Mm-hmm. Our instinctive mind, the part of our brain that runs our body, clusters all these habits and just says, throw. And throw is all of these muscular motions all put together. So that's the instinctive mind. The thinking mind is thinking about stuff and is actually separate from our actual experience. And your thinking mind does a really bad job of running your body. As you know, that's why I have a chapter in Zen Golf. During your swing is not the time to give yourself a lesson. Oops, sorry.
No problem.
Hang on a second. There we go.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all good.
Okay. So what we're saying is during your swing is not a good time to give yourself a lesson. If you're thinking about it, you're thinking, you're not swinging. That's where your mind is. You want to, and that's the challenge of golf. So it sounds simple, but it is the challenge. And that is you use your thinking mind to plan the shot, to pick your target, to decide on the club. In fact, you can give yourself a little bit of a lesson behind the ball making your programming swings. I call them programming rather than practice swings. You're programming in the feels that you want and the move that you want to execute at the ball. Okay? Now, that's the thinking mind is doing that. Then you got to turn over control and turn it over to your instinctive mind and let yourself respond to the feel of the club, the feel of the ground under your feet, and your connection visually and in your memory to the target.
Right. So players that have a hard time doing that, I know you can't answer that for everybody, but do you have an example of a lesson you might have given somebody who has just a really hard time letting go of those technical thoughts and I've kind of personally found that as I meet kids in an older age that have really just learned it on a technical state, they have a harder time doing that versus kids who have been able to develop, really teaching them that process from a young age, they can nail it and really grow up and
absolutely.
But I mean, do you agree with that? Is it harder as they get a little older?
A lot of juniors. How many juniors have told you, I know so much more about the swing than I did 4 years ago, and why am I so much worse?
Right.
No, I'm not much worse. I'm performing much worse, and that is so much information, and not being able to take that information and cluster it into a couple of swing keys. I favor one for going back and one for going through. And if you have that feel, and you find your own language, it's kind of a shortcut key. It might be turn, get my left shoulder under my chin and extend my arms, and get width, right?
Yep.
And then as I get through, cover. I tend to come out of it sometimes. So cover as you go through and really cover and release.
Sure.
Right? So, okay. So I might say turn and wide, cover and release. And those are my swing keys that I put into the practice swing or the program swing. And I say that to myself as I'm on the back swing and on the through swing. And then I get up and I just say, send it to the target. You don't want to be hitting at the ball. You want to think of yourself as sending the ball to the target. There's a big distinction there, and I make that in Zen golf.
Right.
Send it to the target. The ball is not your target.
Right.
Where you want to send it is your target. So you have those swing keys, and so I want players to take the technical instruction and transform that into a feel or a simple description of a move that their instinctive mind knows how to do. And here's a really interesting one. I was at a golf school. I was teaching golf school, and there was a pretty much beginner golfer. I watched her hit on the range, and she looked like a mechanical person, clunk, 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 clunk. Okay. I'm going, what's going on there? We get in the school, and she says, here's a list of 8 things my swing coach wants me to do in every swing. I went, wow, oh my gosh, this is trouble, right? But I looked at him and I said, do you know how to skip a rock? And she said, yeah. I said, show me how you would skip a rock. And it was in a classroom. And she did that motion, I'll get up, right? Skipping a rock, right? How hard is that? And I said, okay, so let's do that in pieces. So you've got your rock in your hand, and the first thing you do is turn this way. So you turn your back to your target, and you load up on your right side, and then you start with your arm. Start with your legs, clear your hips, your right elbow stays close to the side, your wrist lags. It was all 8 things.
Right.
It was all 8 things that we checked all 8 of them off. And she said, you mean all I have to do is feel like I'm skipping a rock and I'm going to hit a good shot? And she got out on the range. Now, we're not talking about with a lot of power, but the swing looked like she knew how to swing a club. And it did not look mechanical. And she went pop, pop, pop straight down the middle of the fairway each time.
Right.
And with just that image of what her instinctive mind, her body already knew how to do. And that's what we try to find. We want to take a swing instruction that's very technical, but find a way to describe it as something your body already knows how to do. And that's how I mesh the mental game and the technical game.
Yeah. I mean, is simplicity not the key? I mean, truthfully.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
I have a chapter in Zen Golf called Never Keep More Than 100 Thoughts in Your Mind During Your Swing. And I had a student say, I'm trying to get down to 100.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild, isn't it? But I mean, it's interesting because, on my side of the I guess, swing coaches or whatever, but I, try to tailor more to performance side, mental side, as we've talked about. And just some of the stuff I see, people being wired up on vests and, have all these machines around them and, It's
I don't have a problem with that if you can translate all that information into a feel.
exactly, that's what I was going for sure.
Now, now, what I've discovered is that people have very different learning modes, and it's not something I discovered. I discovered it in my teaching from my own experience, but it's also in the literature in psychology that people have different learning modes and different keys for performance based on those modes that are either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, feel. So Jack Nicklaus was very visual. Now we all have all three. I mean, Jack Nicklaus had incredible feel. Incredible feel. He could feel where the club was as he was swinging and make an adjustment. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But in his pre-shot, it was all visual. He stood behind the ball, and he called it going to the movies. And he would visualize and imagine himself in front of him, walking up into a dress, doing his waggles, looking at the target, making a swing, and the ball flying all the way to the target, just the shape and trajectory he wanted. He called it going to the movies. I have a student who I'm working with now who was so auditory, he says while he's over a putt, he's a little like Lee Trevino. Now this one's going in. I can already hear it in the bottom, rattling in the bottom of the cup, and he's all talking about sound. And he hits a shot and he said, that sounded so crisp. That sounded so pure, all about sound. And then, of course, there are many players that are all about feel. Mm-hmm. And so, if they're learning, the visual player says, show me video. I want to see it.
Right.
Show me a video of what it should look like. Show me what my video looks like. Show me, do a demo. Show me, see. The other one says, explain it to me. That's auditory. Tell me what is supposed to happen. And the field player, they don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. They say, put me in the position that you want me at the top of the backswing. Oh, you want me to get there? Okay, got it. That's a field player. Right. So you have to know who you're dealing with and find out, and you can hear it from their language.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying. No, that feels right. Those are, you make a comment. One person says, yeah, I see what you're getting at. Another one says, I hear you. The other one says, that feels right. Yeah. There you are.
Yeah. And that's as big as a teacher too, just picking up on language and their learning styles and stuff, no doubt. So I kind of want to move on a little bit here and get into a big topic of, nerves on the course, and the players that have a hard time, like really, they'll practice great, but they'll get over there and they're shaking and they just can't get the heart rate down. Right. Can you talk a little bit about that? And
sure. Well, I have a video called "Taking Your Range Game to the Course,"
mm-hmm.
and players are frustrated. They say, "I hit it so much better on the range." And I was talking to one. I said, "So what you're really saying is you hit 26 irons, and you pick out the best one, and you go, yeah, that's how I hit it."
Right.
You could probably get one like that if you had 20 chances on the course too, but you only get one.
Right.
I said, so first, you're not as good on the range as you think you are, and you're not as bad on the course as you think you are, because you only get one shot at it.
Right.
The other thing is, you hit one on the range and it doesn't go where you want, so what? You hit one on the course and it doesn't go where you want, you got to play it.
Yeah.
As we golfers tell baseball players, yeah, you got to hit a round ball with a round bat, but we got to play our foul balls. So
I like that. Yeah, absolutely.
So supposedly that was an argument between Ted Williams and Sam Snead, and saying which game was more difficult.
Right.
And Williams said, they're throwing a ball at me at 100 miles an hour. And Sam says, yeah, but I got to play my foul balls. So
that's the point for sure.
So the key is, so why would people get nervous? What they're nervous about is hope. What creates the nervous excitement is a building cycle of hope and fear that reverberate, right? I hope I'll do well. I fear I'll screw up. I hope I'll do well. I fear I won't. I hope I will. I fear I won't. I hope I will. And it builds in energy until we have so much tension as we're playing. And if we're playing well, it still happens. I hope I can keep it going. I fear I'm going to blow it. And that happens midway through the back nine very often. So what that's all about, what is that hope and fear about? It's about results. It's about outcomes. So the outcomes are not important on the range. That's why it's easy to hit practice shots. Right. What are you doing? You're making your best swing and see what happens and learn from it. Wow, what an idea. Mm-hmm. What if we took that on the golf course and said, for every shot, I'm going to prepare the best I can. I'm going to make the best swing I can, see what happens, and learn from it. That's what I teach as the PAR approach. Preparation, action, response to results. All about process. Take care of the process, the results take care of themselves. Worry about results, process goes to hell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the thing. Now, so you have to change your attitude and say, look, I'm going to give myself room to play. So the perfectionism also contributes to nerves. I'm going to give myself room to play. I'm going to make the best swing I can and know that if I get out of the way, I'm going to hit it pretty much where I want to, pretty much as well as I can, given my level of ability and experience. And it's going to come down someplace, and then I'm going to find it and play it. You get in your own way when you say, I need it to come here, I need it to go there, and then manipulation happens. The biggest obstacles to making a free swing are trying to help the ball do something you want it to do and prevent it from doing something you don't want it to do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes those are the same things. If you're afraid of hooking it to the left, you block it and push it out to the right. So you prevent it from going left by holding the face open, and then you push it out to the right. So that's preventing and helping it. And both create a bad shot. Right. So what we want to do is we want to, take that attitude from the range and bring it to the course and know that that's going to get us our best results, not worrying about what the score is or where the ball is going to end up. I work with Christy Kerr on the LPGA Tour, and that's the main thing at every level, from beginners to number one in the world. Worrying about how it's going to turn out is the biggest obstacle. And what Christy came up with, she said, when I worry about results, that's the letters WAR, war.
I love it.
When I worry about results, I'm at war with myself. Pretty good, huh?
Oh, that's really good.
I always credit her with that one.
That's great, yeah.
If I worry about results, I'm at war with myself. And that's interference with my process. I'm not going to make a free swing. I'm not going to commit if I can't accept the full range of results. I can't freewheel it. So we have the PAR approach, which is have a clear picture of where you do want to go, commitment to the swing, that you're not going to second guess it and change in mid-swing. And the last you referenced is composure, to work with your breathing, to slow yourself down, to move a little more slowly and temper the adrenaline and reduce some of the tension from the hope and fear, and then load up and freewheel it, let her rip.
Yeah. And I mean, so isn't that where mindfulness can come back and help, and just understanding how to breathe to kind of soothe the nerves a little bit and slow the heart rate?
Well, that's breathing. That's not mindfulness. That's breathing practice.
Sure.
And it's associated with mindfulness because very often breathing is the object of attention that we want to use in our mindfulness practice.
Okay.
And that is partly because breathing, the breath and the mind are very much connected. If you're uptight, you're breathing up here and your shoulders are up here, your breath is up here, you're not really taking full breaths, you're actually depriving your brain of oxygen. If you're relaxed, think about when you get home and sit in the easy chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
You take a nice, big, deep breath and you sink in, and your breathing is it's deep, but it's soft, and you're getting a lot of oxygen. So when you're uptight, you're actually starving your brain of oxygen as well. So the counter to that is Make sure you're breathing fully and slowly as you walk from shot to shot, and take that nice full grounding breath. Breathe in, don't raise your shoulders up, just fill your torso with air. You're filling your lungs, but you feel like your whole torso is filling with air, and then breathe out and let your feet sink into the ground, and you'll be really grounded. You'll feel your feet in the ground, which is as far from being in your head as you can be.
Right.
And then you feel the ground as you walk up, and you stay connected to the earth and use that as your pushing off point to make the swing, and you'll make a better golf swing.
I like it. So another big topic here, at least of what I see, is expectations. And expectations really of what golf is, especially for juniors, because they're seeing it on TV. They're seeing the best in the world. Everybody hits it to 2 feet and never misses a fairway. So, and so they, they're going to kind of lash out if they hit some bad shots. And I think that kind of goes to what we're just talking about anyway. But, I mean, do you see that same thing?
Well, for juniors, keep in mind, for juniors, perfectionism is a big thing.
Sure.
Juniors, they see themselves through a magnifying glass. If they're getting ready, and I still remember, even with gray hair, I still remember getting ready for a school dance and seeing, oh no, a pimple on the end of my nose. Well, it's a tiny little pimple, and it looks like Mount Vesuvius, right? It's like, oh, it's the end of the world. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's a little embarrassing, but it's not the end of the world.
Right.
Well, teenagers, that's what life is like for teenagers, like a magnifying glass. Everything is magnified. So missing a shot is magnified. And it's easy to get down on yourself. It's easy to be self-critical because you're doing this transformation from being a child to an adult. And it's really a challenging transformation. I talk a lot about that when I do my junior clinics. And we'll talk about how parents can help with that. But the key is be realistic. And part of that being realistic is knowing your dispersion pattern with the different clubs. So see where you hit a dozen good shots. They won't all come down on the same pitch mark, I promise. The test robot, the balls don't come down on the same pitch mark. Now, the PGA Tour, it's just as you said, they see the guys who are in the hunt on Sunday that are striping it.
Yeah.
But the PGA Tour average, the best PGA Tour player for greens in regulation is about 14 in a round.
Right.
Between 13 and 14. They don't hit every green.
Right.
They don't hit every fairway. And here's a real kicker. They think that if you have a sand wedge or a gap wedge in your hand, like a 125-yard club, for the young players, they hit it that far, and the pros hit it that far. They think they're going to put it to 2 feet, like you said, every time. Well, the average distance from 125 yards on the PGA Tour, 20 feet 6 inches.
Yep.
7 yards off of the hole. 7 yards away. People would say that's a terrible shot. No, that's the PGA Tour average. That's pretty good. Yeah. That's exactly. So be a little more forgiving. That's what I'm talking about. In golf, and this is real important, if juniors are listening, this transformed some pros that I've taught. This transformed their games. In golf, you aim at a spot, but you play to an area. Pick that spot within your area and aim at it. Pick a small target. Small targets, small misses. But and try to hit it at that target, but be accepting of the whole area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah. I mean,
and that's gonna make you enjoy the game a lot more. I had a player he described what was an acceptable shot to him, and I described an acceptable shot to me off the tee. And I had a huge area and he had a very small area. And I said, who's going to be the happier golfer? And he said, you are. And I said, you could be if you would just give yourself a break and make your area, be less perfectionist. You know, if your drive goes over a certain distance and you can get the club on the ball cleanly and there's nothing in your way, it's a good enough drive.
Yeah, and how many people hit, layup shots really well because there's no target?
Well, and they might have a place they're aiming, but they're not worried about landing on an exact spot.
Right.
They're playing to an area. They're doing exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
That's
gonna
one thing I've learned
I'm
from
gonna
you.
lay up, and I'm gonna lay up, and I'm gonna go towards the end of that bridge across the creek that I'm laying up in front of. And I like to say lay back, not lay up. Lay up is get as close to the trouble as you can. I don't want to do that. I want to lay back from the trouble, which is give myself plenty of room. So if I happen to pure it, and we pure our layup shots more than any other shots,
Right.
because we're not trying so hard. If I pure it, it's still not going to go in the hazard. And then nothing in the way, free swinging. Why don't we, every drive's a layup. Did you know that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I never thought about it like that.
That's in one of my chapters. You're not trying to drive the green. You're trying to lay up into the ideal place that you can approach the green from.
Wow. Yeah, I'm taking notes over here, Doc. Great. So really quick,
it's in Zen Golf. It's called "Beware of Trying for a Few Extra Yards."
Oh, I gotta go back to that. Yeah. So just parents' role in helping juniors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't have to get too deep in that, but I mean,
well, I can be very simple about that. Very simple. Parents can help, and they can also harm significantly.
Right.
If all they do is pick out what the kid did wrong, and criticize them and say, why did you do this? Why did you hit it there? It's like, hey, Dad, I wasn't trying to hit it there, believe me.
Right.
And they can make it, there are stories of pro golfers who really are pretty much basket cases because of the way and other pro athletes because of the way their dads treated them. And there are tiger moms out there treating their kids saying, you've got to do it this way and you've got to do it that way. Okay, so let me explain what parents' role is. And they wear lots of different hats. And I'll tell them the hats they can wear and the hats they can't wear. Okay, they're going to wear the chauffeur hat because they're going to be driving the kids all over the place.
For sure.
Okay, then they can put their banker hat on because they're going to be financing the whole thing, right? Okay. They're going to be putting the housekeeper hat on and the landlord hat because they're paying the rent, and all of these hats. Now I want them to wear the cheerleader hat, right? And say, yay, okay, you did it. That's great. That's great. Well, on the football team, when the team fumbles, the cheerleaders don't stand there like this going with their arms crossed going.
Right.
But you see parents do that when the kid hits a bad shot. Yeah. And the kids are looking for approval as human beings. So stop withdrawing approval when they do something, when they hit a bad shot. Approve of them. The only time you withdraw approval is if they start acting like a jerk out there.
Right.
Throwing clubs and and acting like a baby. Well, then you treat them like a baby. Mm-hmm. But other than that, you don't do that. You say, come on, you'll get what does the team go? The cheerleaders go when the team fumbles? That's okay. You'll get it back. We'll get it back. Come on. We'll do better next time. That's all. Now, the other hat they're not allowed to wear is golf critic. Mm-hmm. And that goes along with that of picking out, of keeping saying, you did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And finally, the last one, please, unless you are a certified golf coach, don't wear the coach hat. Ugh.
Yeah.
You're a coach.
Oh,
Do you like it when you get the kids and the parents have said, well, I think he needs to turn a little more and shift his weight a little more this way, and you go, no.
Right.
Now, even they might say, well, I heard your coach say this, so I'm just repeating what your coach said. Maybe not in the right situation.
Yeah.
Unless you're a real golf coach, don't play coach.
Yeah.
Find a professional.
Well, and I've told people too, it's like, I ask them what line of business they're in. I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to give you financial advice over here. If you're a financial guy, I don't know that. It's not my lane. And
Right.
I've studied this for, years and years and years amongst some great experts. And, even
Right.
if I get stumped, I'll reach out to some experts to help, but yeah. So, all right. We'll just one more quick
I think
thing.
that'll help. I think that'll be really helpful for parents.
Yeah. So one more quick thing, and then I want to get into some of the new stuff you got going. Just if you have like the biggest problem you see, especially from competitive players, what is that number one thing you see most players making mistakes, I guess, or struggling with mentally?
Yeah, it's about the interference that comes from worrying about results.
Okay.
Whether it's worrying about whether a putt's going to go in or not. And, I talk about the only thing you control is how you get it started. If you got it started and you like the way it started off your putter, you made your putt. It's the ball's job to find the hole. So if you're guiding it and helping it towards the hole, it's just going to interfere with your putting. Same thing with your chipping and pitching. Same thing with your full swing. As I talked about, the interference that comes from helping or preventing to try to make it come out a particular way. And the other interference is, the other thing, particularly for competitive golfers, is worrying about score during the round. And you don't turn in a 14-hole score. So what are you doing thinking about it? There's a good opportunity for practicing mindfulness. And practicing mindfulness in that way is you notice when you are sitting at the scorer's table in your mind after 18 holes and your body's not there.
Right.
Say, wait a minute, we got 4 more holes to play. Stop thinking about what the score is going to be and just play each hole the best we can.
Yeah. It's wonderful, Doc. Again, I think mindfulness is a big thing that I hope and I try to get my players to widely accept more, because I know the power of it, and I think until you actually experience it, it's hard to, there's some skeptics obviously, but your books, obviously are what kind of got me into it, which was nice. And, and that's why it led me to reach out to you a long time ago. But, so I want to get into some of the new stuff you're doing. I love the Winnie the Pooh idea. And believe me, as soon as my daughter's old enough, I'll be reading that to her. She's 7 months old, so I don't know if she's quite ready, but
yeah,
but
maybe
definitely, I'm going to be giving that to some of my players and some of my younger players, especially. But I know you had the book in front of you, but I want to just share my screen really quick and show your websites here. Yeah. And can you see this okay?
That's it.
Yeah. So here's the website. It's AWITW, a walkinthewood.com.
Those are the initials of the book, AWITW.com.
Yeah. And, you can talk more about it. You did this with your sister, right? Which I think is really cool.
That's right. Well, the Disney company asked my sister, who has worked and written children's books for them for a long time. They said, we want to write a book for adults and children. And I know your brother teaches mindfulness. Would the two of you like to write a book? And I said, great. So you see, in the 2 of the reviews there are from the founder of Google's mindfulness training program. And then also from a professor at Northwestern who teaches mindfulness there at Northwestern University. So corporations like Google and Intel and even companies like Ford and KPMG, they're all doing lots of mindfulness training programs because they recognize the benefit of both wellness and performance. That's me and my sister there. And so there's a good expression of mindfulness that Winnie the Pooh's sitting there and he's thinking, come back from the future or past to what I was just doing last. That's the way I know how to be Pooh here and now. So that's really mindfulness, coming back from the future or past to what I was just doing last and bringing yourself back to that present moment. So very excited about that. And for the other thing for wellness is the diet book that I told you about. And the key to this diet book is that there are no recipes or menus. It's simply a way to apply what I call the positive choice method of being mindful about what you're eating and the choices that you're making that are going to lead you to your desired result or take you further away from it. So instead of it being a punishment, instead of dieting being a punishment, you say, this is my health program, this is my wellness program. And so instead of saying, I can't have this, you decide what's worth the calories. And if it's worth the calories, go ahead and eat it. There are no restrictions in this diet. I was at the club this afternoon and they brought out the bread basket and they have these great, delicious pieces of olive bread. And I go, that is worth the calories. But if I go out to a restaurant and it's kind of, you know, junky old French bread from a supermarket, I'm not going to waste the calories on that.
Right.
I'm going to enjoy something else on the menu, and we don't have to stuff ourselves. You know, in France, the expression for when you've had enough to eat is "I'm no longer hungry." In America, the expression for when you don't want to have any more to eat is "I'm full up to here. I couldn't eat another bite." You don't have to stuff yourself that much. So starting to feel better when you're not stuffed, all of those kinds of things are a positive choice method, and it really, really works, and it's painless. So there's no punishment about this dieting, and no restrictions. So those are the two latest things that I've been working with, and I'm excited about the Winnie the Pooh book because I want parents to read it. It's very simple mindfulness and kind. It's all about mindful and kind. There's mindfulness practice and kindness practice, and then they can share it with their children and build the family values around mindfulness and kindness from generation to generation. So people ask, you know, what age range is the book for? And I would say from 4 to 104.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea. Obviously, I think it's really cool, and I mean, everybody loves Disney, so you know, being able to
it really is a family, and it's a family affair because I wrote it with my sister, and my wife is a graphic designer for Disney, and she designed the book and the interior, and we have some beautiful art in there,
yeah,
and beautiful poetry.
well, definitely a great idea. But
Thank you.
so, Doc, I really appreciate you taking the time and being able to share some of this information. I know the power of it, and it helps having such an authority like yourself, obviously, get on here. And it's really awesome to see all the stuff you're doing, too. I mean, like I said, I've been following you since Zen Golf, and then fortunately I've gotten to know you over the years. So, but I appreciate all the help you've given me, obviously. And, you know, I'll put the links to all of your information, obviously, along with this. But, you know, if players do want to get a hold of you, you are available for Skype sessions. And
just like this, like you and I are talking, it's like sitting in the same room, Skype or FaceTime. And if you go to zengolf.com, you'll see all the opportunities.
Awesome. And I definitely would recommend that for, you know, everybody that wants to take their performance to another level, because this is some powerful stuff you're sharing. But so, Doc, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And I'll let you get back to your evening.